Nami here, Baran, the Secretary General of Softball Europe. We're here with the interviews that we've been doing the past few times. This time we'll be talking about softball, Slowpitch softball. Wolfgang Walther, how you doing there, guys?
Very good.
Fine.
There you go. Who is the most famous name today in Slowpitch worldwide? We'll keep that going, and you guys are welcomed at the end of our interview. We'll hear what you guys have to say about that. So let's start off the questioning. Tell me, how long has Slowpitch been played in Germany, and how many people play it within your leagues there?
Quite a long time in Germany. I think it started in the early 2000s or so. At least that's what I know. So there has been developing a whole community of Slowpitch, but also mixed fast-pitch softball. Probably something like 40 to maybe 50 teams that play Slowpitch in those leagues right now. So probably something like 800 people. Yeah, but inside the federation, we're trying to grow it for the last couple of years. I think for the last 10 years now, we're having the German championship. We have probably like 8 participants every year. We hope to have more than 8 for the first time this year, but well, those plans got canceled, I guess.
You're a national team player for the Slowpitch. You're a national team player for FASTPITCH. You're in charge of one club, I think, is it? Is it an easy thing for you to do?
Well, now it is. There have been times where it was quite hard to switch between Slowpitch and FASTPITCH. Okay, I'm gonna hit FASTPITCH left-handed and Slowpitch right-handed because it's just so much of a difference involved in quite a lot. I do a lot of organization for both the national teams, and I also am involved for the travelers. So it's not only on my shoulders. So yeah. But yeah, I play FASTPITCH and Slowpitch. Over the years, I played for many different teams in a lot of different countries. It's a great joy.
That's great. That's great. So tell me, another goal every year, the Slowpitch community? Is it just one region of Germany? I remember sometimes we talked about it, that there's some areas where you had more people than you did in the others.
I mean, Germany is a big country, so there's areas where we don't have many people at all, so it's hard to get teams playing Slowpitch or FASTPITCH. I think it's quite easy, actually, to get players to play, so for us, each year, I feel. But it's quite hard for us to get other teams to play, get a team out of nowhere. That's been quite hard for us. I think the game in Germany has not really been growing over the past couple of years.
Right. Mike Jennings from GB. So tell me, how long has Slowpitch been played in Great Britain?
The first recorded formal games were a bunch of guys who played down. That would have been late 50s into the 60s. In early 70s, Bob, with colleagues, started another game up near Regis, men, women, and kids invited along as well. And that focus point became the growth point for a lot of softball activity in Regis Park. So up into the 80s, when there was league and a structure. So that's where we see, I think, the real roots of our game today. London was first a hotbed, and most of the leagues there were formed on a corporate banking league, the law, the lawyers, and that is the London structure. Outside London, all of the major cities then started to grow their own. So we now have up to 12 sport in GB. We have 300 and something recognised teams as members of the federation. We've got, and that would be maybe 1,000 within BS UK. That's Baseball Softball UK, our development marketing arm. And they run various programs, indoor programs. They started a universities league, up now to 40 teams in that particular league. And then outside the federation and outside BS UK completely, we have the people we are aware of who play. Maybe rather like Germany used to be before the federation. There's maybe up to 5,000 players out in those non-federation but still well-organized league structures. The Charity League in London, for example, itself So that's where we stand at the moment, anywhere between 10, 15,000.
Wow, that seems that's a lot of players. I don't know what's happening in Germany or around the other countries in Europe as to. We'll talk about that a little later. But tell me, your connections with Guernsey and Jersey are how are you able to help them build up? Is there a way that's happening?
Indeed, well, where we can or where we're asked, certainly. Jersey used to tournament in the spring. And it was pre-season, I guess, for most of the GB teams. So that was a very popular occasion, the mainland for competitions. And they've joined in with us several times, including with the Grand Slam, the World Series. World Series is an 18-team tournament we run along with lots of other continental Europe teams. We help them out also with training courses, and BASU, our umpire organization, sends over tutors on a regular basis to help. So as much cooperation as we can, and we're always happy to see them. They're always happy to see us.
Hi, everybody. We're back. We're back live. So, as we said before, we've been talking to Mike Jennings and to Wolfgang Walther from Germany and from GB, respectively, they were. Here we go. We had the last question that we were going with Mike about Guernsey and Jersey, and you did mention that there's a lot of connection there and trying to build it up within the three islands that we have there. As you know, we also have Ireland out there. We'll be getting a question later on from the president of Softball Ireland. I got a question for both of you. So what do you feel about is it growing through Europe? Is Slowpitch softball growing through Europe?
Germany, I'm not sure whether it's growing. It's hard to tell because it's so much outside of the federation. Definitely participation at the ESF level is growing. We had many teams that we didn't have before at the last couple of tournaments. But also, I'm not quite sure whether the underlying teams have always been there and are just now more visible because they are participating at the ESF level, or whether they just came out of nowhere now and it's actually growing. I'm pretty sure that it has been growing in the Netherlands for the last couple of years. That's a prime example, I think. From what I know from the outside, the federation is supporting it there as well. So, yeah, I think it is growing a little bit, but ESF participation is growing, and that's what I'm really happy about.
Mike, what do you think?
Well, certainly all the evidence points to growth. Whether it's as fast as we would all want is a different question. But if you look at the co-ed Slowpitch Championship, that's been every 2 years since '98. The first occasion of that had 4 teams in it. The last one that was in Budapest, Hungary, was last year, 2019. 11 teams. So it's taken time to get there, but that was a very good turnout. 17 federations have signed up for that over that period of time. When we look at the other competition, that's the co-ed Slowpitch Super Cup. That started back in 2007. We've had 9 of those. And initially that was an annual event. But then we borrowed some of the really good ideas from men's competition. The men's Super Cup allows 2 teams from every country. So what we do now is that we have the Cup one year and the Championship the next. In the Cup year, every country is allowed to put in 2 teams. A third one, of course, is defending champion. And that has worked well. The numbers have grown very big on that. So first time around, 5 teams. Last time we played, 16 teams. That was in Riccione. Over those years, we've had 77 teams have come through that. And I think that's encouraging growth. Once we're at that sort of number, of course, the facilities you need to put on the competition become a real challenge for hosts. You really need, from 16 upwards, you're going to need 3 fields. And with the demands of Slowpitch size, that's 3 pretty good size fields. Certainly larger, hopefully, than, say, a women's fast pitch field. So I think there is good evidence of growth. We'd always like to see more. But we're sharing space and we share facilities, of course, with FASTPITCH. So sometimes the constraint on the facilities is what will slow us down a little bit.
Right. So, okay. So, all right. So we are on the growth, and I hope that we can continue it. And like you were just mentioning with the concept about the comparisons here, I'm reminding everybody again about that killer question. There are people out there who are joining us. We have a lot more viewers now. Hopefully, our technical problems are a little better right now. The killer question would be, who's the most famous name today in Slowpitch worldwide? Hope some people will start sending in names that we've been going. I'm going to talk now about comparing Slowpitch and FASTPITCH communities, and I'm going to start with you, Mike. Just a little bit about Mike. You know, Mike, I know that you involved with Pricewater, London, early 80s. You've also been, you know, an umpire since the mid 80s for European softball and Slowpitch and FASTPITCH, and been the TC and director for WBC and Slowpitch and FASTPITCH World Cups. And one thing maybe not everybody remembers or knows, you also were the president of the European Softball Federation at one point. If I'm correct, it was in 2003 to 2009. So that's a little bit of your background in there. Tell me, as a director of the Competitions and Technical Committee, can you give us a comparison as to the numbers in the ESF competitions and participants between Slowpitch and FASTPITCH?
Well, surely. If we look, we have to look at a 2-year period to get all of the competitions in, because, of course, our championships are 2-year rotating. But if we look at the last 2 years, 19 and 18, then you'll find that over that period of time, we had 19 competitions in FASTPITCH, and that involved 228 teams playing. On the Slowpitch side, in comparison, it was 3 competitions with 34 teams playing. So there's a scale difference, but that really isn't terribly surprising considering the big FASTPITCH base that the ESF has always represented. So just in terms of raw numbers, those are the comparisons. I'm not sure they're terribly meaningful, but I do think with this, as with all things, there's a good relationship between the two. And in the case of people, certainly like Wolfgang, there's quite a lot of people who play in both disciplines, so they're well used to both of them.
Right. So Wolfgang, so just like being as a player, what are the fundamental differences? I mean, do you find that the skills that are needed for Slowpitch are different than FASTPITCH? You know, just give me a little bit of what you're thinking and how you feel about it.
Well, obviously, the basics are the same. You need to throw the ball, you need to field the ball, you need to hit the ball. If you have the ability to generate bat speed, that will help you in both games. But there is quite a big of a difference. For me personally, I realized that back in 2011 when we started for the first time to play Slowpitch at the European level. I was a baseball player, baseball and FASTPITCH before, and we came to the Europeans the first time, and I was a bit naive, I would say. I came there and thought, okay, Slowpitch, that should be easy enough to hit, so I'm just gonna give it everything I have, and after a couple of days, I hit something like 375 or so, and I was really happy because I thought, okay, that's actually good, coming from that baseball background. Well, then I took a look at the stats of the other teams and saw that like every other guy on the tournament was hitting something like 500, 600, maybe better. So that was the point where I was like, okay, there's a bit of a different challenge in Slowpitch compared to FASTPITCH, hitting-wise, obviously. So if you have the correct basics, you can succeed in both sports, but I think what really stops people when they switch between sports, maybe like the regular FASTPITCH or baseball player that starts to pick up Slowpitch, I think some of them just like me, just think, okay, that's too easy, and they don't take it serious enough, and then they don't realize, okay, to be really good, you have to hit like 600, 700, maybe 800 or something like that. So they're basically blocking themselves mentally because they're just taking it too easy. On the other side, the other way around, if you play Slowpitch and then suddenly start to try out FASTPITCH, you might be intimidated a bit too much because of the speed and because of the pitcher and everything, and you think the game is not in your control anymore because the pitcher has so much dominance. And that's basically the same thing. It's the wrong approach as well. So I think switching between both sports, the biggest thing is mental. If you have the correct basics, you can succeed everywhere.
So, right. So, yeah, like you said, I mean, there are some people out there who believe that the slow pitch is just an easier sport. And that, you know, it's pretty simple. There's no problem with scout and anything like that. Truth be told, as I've heard it before, is then how do you get your outs? People think you can't get outs in slow pitch because you can hit the ball all the time everywhere you want. I'm sure that doesn't happen. True?
If it was as easy as hitting the ball everywhere I want to, then everybody would be like hitting 1,000. But that's not the case. Obviously, it's like if you, from a naive standpoint, it's easier to hit slow pitch. But if you think about it, it's just a different goal. Like if you hit the ball the same way in slow pitch than in fast pitch, it might be easier to do that, to get good contact, but that's just not the goal. Like in fast pitch, you are very good when you're hitting like 375 or something, but in slow pitch, the goal all of a sudden is to hit like 800 or something like that. So the challenge is still there. If you're not focused for every at bat 100%, you cannot succeed. In the end, it's not about how well you make contact with the ball. It's about winning. And the thing is, the other team is hitting the same way. So you have to be better compared to them. So it doesn't matter whether the ball is fast or slow. You have to be better at that than the other team. So that's always going to be a challenge, and a big challenge.
Interesting. I hope people. We've been getting some questions from outside. I'll have a couple questions here about this comparison. Mike, for you, from one of our viewers, why do you think slow pitch is more popular in the UK instead of fast pitch or baseball?
I think it's a question of where the development starts, where it comes from, as much as anything. It's the individuals who are involved. We've had great help in the past from expatriates, and they've started fast pitch here as well as being a great contributor on the slow pitch side. But GB, of course, does not have the infrastructure of lots of playing fields with backstops up. And that's just about a prerequisite for fast pitch to develop anywhere. The beauty of slow pitch is that particularly if you talk the recreational level, any field will do. You can play out of the corner of any grass field and you've got a game. You don't have the same requirements as far as kit is concerned, the masks and the padding. The rules are, I think, a little bit easier than they might be in fast pitch, but it's an easy access sport. You don't have to have expert pitchers to make the game go well. It's easier to become a slow pitch pitcher than it is a fast pitch pitcher. I think I turn it around a little bit and say, why is slow pitch particularly useful right now? And I think nowadays we've got, not only in schools look for a single sport that both genders can play. So rather than have the boys down one end playing soccer and the girls up at the other end playing netball, co-ed slow pitch in a school environment, is a jolly good game to have. And I've been at several finals of big county competitions, and it's just great to see them coming through. Also for first-time adults, quite a few people will go through our school and university system without having had access to sport at any particular level. In university, you can play any sport you like, but you've got to be pretty good at it. There's thousands of students and only like 11 or 15 people on the main teams. So a lot of people will come to work for the first time, and they're looking for an evening social sport. They can play with their workmates in particular on any patch of ground close by. No barriers to entry. Playing for a maximum of maybe an hour and a half. And in slow pitch, it is quite easy to curtail a game, and you're going to play a game much quicker than you would typically do in fast pitch. You're out on the third strike, whatever happens. So that will speed things up. And all these things, I think, make it an easy one to get into. Wolfgang was mentioning a little bit early on the keeping of people in the sport. Now, I think I've noticed it. I think particularly in the Netherlands, if you've got a club structure and you've got a clubhouse and you've got all of the infrastructure there, in competitive games at the competitive level in fast pitch and in baseball, people will be leaving the sport, perhaps in their late 20s, the early 30s. If they came into competitive slow pitch, and I have never known a slow pitch game where people are happy to lose. Whether it's called a recreational game or not, it's a competition. And so if those players who are well used to competitive play in fast pitch and in baseball then come into slow pitch softball, you've got economically active adults, members of the club who stay with the club, they stay in the bar. Social sports being what they are, we have lots of marriages amongst our softball community, and we now have quite a lot of softball children. Now, if they're in a club environment, those are the kids who are going to be getting into b-ball and t-ball with their parents' encouragement. They're all down the club, maybe weekday evenings for practice, and then at the weekends. And then the coaches, well, they're going to be the parents. The parents can manage and coach those youngsters. They're staying with them the whole time. It's a tremendous virtual cycle which keeps people in the game longer, as well as being an easy access sport for those who haven't already been a part of it. So, I think it makes economic sense as well as sporting sense.
Right. Okay. So like you said, it's a sport that I was going to ask you the question about like why would somebody leave fast pitch, but I think you went pretty well into that. And before you were mentioning that, I'm just going to look at Wolfgang for a second. He pitches also for the men's fast pitch in Germany, and he also pitches for their slow pitch. When you mentioned that, it's the difference is, I don't know if I saw him giving a little bit of a shake of a hand there about, it's not that simple to be, and there are skills within the slow pitch pitching, isn't there, Wolfgang? It's not just as, tossing the ball. There's a lot of skill behind it, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think that's just underrated by a lot of players, a lot of people. How important pitching is in slow pitch. It's not just about throwing strikes. That would be a very good start, because if you're throwing balls that consistently, then it doesn't really help. But it's not just about that. You can do a lot of stuff with the ball in slow pitch as well. It can have movement. Like Kareem, our German pitcher for quite a couple of years, he could basically do everything, I feel like, with a slow pitch ball. And he had pitches that moved like really that much to the side and everything. It's a bit different. Like, it's not about spinning the ball that heavily, but it's more like cutting it. There are pitches like that in fast pitch and baseball as well. But you can get movement, and especially for us, I'm sure we're going to talk about that as well, where we like to position ourselves in the fields a little bit differently than other teams maybe. It's very important that our pitcher is able to hit those spots, like consistently pitching inside, consistently pitching short, or whatever. Like, every hitter has not really a weakness maybe, but some pitches that they like to hit more compared to others. And if you can use those weaknesses, then yeah. But yeah, I mean, I do pitch slow pitch and fast pitch, but I'm not really sure whether there's that much of a difference between my fast pitch pitching and my slow pitch pitching. My fast pitch pitching is quite slow as well.
I can actually say I think I've seen you on both, and I think you do pretty well as a fast pitch pitcher too. So, and by the way, we've been getting some notes here. I don't know if you know there's a guy named Pete Saunders who said, who taught you to pitch? So they wanted to know, who taught you to pitch, Wolfie? That's what Pete Saunders is asking right now. Yeah, who taught you to pitch slow pitch?
Nobody. Maybe Kareem a little bit. I was watching Kareem. You have to know, Kareem, like when he played and when he pitched, he was really practicing it. And he was, I think, for probably maybe 4.5 years or something, he was pitching like slow pitch 3 or 4 times a week at least, like alone, because nobody else was there to pitch with him. So occasionally, when I was in town as well, like he lives a couple of 100 kilometers away, occasionally I would be there as well, and I would catch him and just watch him work out and do everything. And of course, I pick up a lot because I always talk to him about that as well and try different things. But it was only when he stopped playing that somebody had to pitch, and I guess I was the slowest of the infielders, so it was the first choice that I had to do it, right?
There you go. There you go. Okay, so one more question from one of our people outside. They asked you, in your opinion, and I guess I'll have to ask Wolfgang again, should there be a rule that the pitchers wear masks? You know, people watching the slow pitch, even though fast pitch, the impact that you get off the bat as soon as it comes back to the pitcher, but also in slow pitch, it's pretty scary. You think the pitchers need to wear masks?
Well, if you had asked me a couple of years ago, I would have said, well, no. Why? I was forced to wear a mask in, I think, in Almere for the first time. There was a rule for that, and so I had to get one. And I've not stopped since. It just doesn't make sense. Just doesn't make sense to play without a mask. I mean, if you're any serious about your health, like you have no disadvantages. If you get a proper mask, you can easily see the ball and everything. And it's just not worth the risk. Like, for me personally, I don't expect the other team to not hit the middle. I expect the other team to try to find the hole wherever it is. And if my team's opens up the middle, then they should hit middle. So I should be ready for that. And if I throw the ball right in the middle and they just hit it right back at me, I must be ready for that. And honestly, if like one of those big guys just crushes the ball really hard, I have no chance. So I better have a mask. And okay, mask makes sense, but the problem is people are not smart enough, probably all the time, to take care of their of what would be right for them. So sometimes you have to force them, and I think it would be a good rule to force every pitcher to wear a mask, because it also makes the hitting easier. Like when you have a pitcher pitching that doesn't have a mask, he doesn't run back. Maybe I have seen pitchers that just run straight at you after pitching in slow pitch. Like, you don't really feel well about hitting the middle. But if they try to take away that part of the game from you, then that kind of, I don't know. As a hitter, I want to have a good feeling when hitting middle, and it definitely helps when the pitcher has a mask.
Right. Perfect. Well, like I said, that's an important issue. The safety issue is pretty big, and a lot of people, a lot of times you hear how they're worried about that, and how you're supposed to play the game. We're going to move on a little bit more now into what I call into the participation at the Super Cup and Championships. Mike, you've been quiet for a while. I'm going to give it to Wolfgang one more time since I want to hear something. So if I'm correct, Wolfgang, Germany started to play at the Championships in 2011, and in your fourth showing, you guys took the gold. I guess my question would be, do you think you took measures in training in order to get to that point? And if so, what kind of regimes do you incorporate? Is it like you would do in any other sport, or is it just, hey, we're just going to have some fun and it just happened?
Absolutely not. Like, I think when we went there in 2011 for the first time, it was more like, okay, we're just going to see what happens. But that was, as I said earlier, more of a naive thing from me or us, because we thought, okay, it's slow pitch, so we should be fine. But after we realized that it is, in fact, a different game and a hard game to be good at, we realized, okay, if we're just going to have that approach, we don't have the experience, especially that all the GB players have. They have so many teams, so many players, so much tournaments they play and everything. We cannot compete with that. So I think when we started, like 2012 or something, when we realized, okay, how do we want to approach this? We said very early on, okay, we want to take this serious. We basically had a motto for our team. Kareem, who was the pitcher back then, put that into a famous 2 words. We were having serious fun. So we kind of wanted to put both things together. At the same time, serious. Having a serious approach means like playing better, and that is fun as well, right? So what did we do? It helped that Kareem is a sports scientist. I studied at a sports university, and a couple of other of our core players studied there as well. So we had a kind of scientific approach to it as well. So we always asked questions whether is that what we're doing right now, is that helping us, or should we maybe do it differently? And we were also over the years not afraid to do stupid stuff as well. We tried basically everything. Like I can remember when we played in 2012, I think, or 13 in Pardubice. At one point when we played GB, we had like pitcher and catcher in the infield, and everybody else was in the outfield. That was one of our most extreme defensive positioning. We quickly realized it didn't really work well, but over the years we basically tried everything, and we found that some things worked, some things didn't, and we got a pretty good understanding of what we were able to do strategically. And of course, in practice, we worked towards that. So we always knew, okay, we need to get the basics right. We need to, like in the infield, we need to be able to stop probably every ball that is hit towards us. We should not let the ball go through to the outfield. Very early on, we changed our positioning of boys and girls in the field compared to other teams. A lot of teams still play guy in left field and then girl, guy, girl. We always thought, okay, if we have our girls in the middle, the distance to second base is a lot shorter for the girls to throw, and we can get the ball quicker to second base from every part of the field. So stuff like that, of course, made it into training as well. So all of our guy outfielders are working in left field and right field. Our girls are working in the middle, and stuff like that. So for our outfielders, it was always the most important thing to get the best jump possible right off the bat, to get the most range possible, to kind of big slow pitch outfield. And of course, hitting wise, it was always important for us to be able to hit to all fields, because if we know that they have some weaker players on one of the sides, we must be able to hit to that side. And we do a lot of scouting in slow pitch, and we realize a lot of players have very strong tendencies, and we like to make use of them for our defense. But me personally, I always expected that at some point, some of the other teams must play a shift or something against us as well. It never happened, but I can tell you we would have been ready.
Wow, that sounds really interesting. I can tell you right now that
let me add.
Yeah.
Sorry. Let me add to that. Like, this doesn't really explain why after 4 years or in our fourth appearance there, we are taking gold, right? For us, winning the gold medal, it's not something that will happen every time. It's something that was a once in a lifetime probably opportunity, because GB was just so strong over the years and will always be strong. And we always knew over those years that everything basically for us had to come together. So we said, okay, we just need to make it to the top 4 because of the page playoff systems. And then we just need to have a very good final day of the tournament. And we can use all our experience and scouting info and everything. And then we need just that big of an amount of luck as well to have everything go right for us to make it possible to win it. And we were quite unlucky in 2015. I think we made it to the top 4, and then the rain came, and we didn't have any final game and everything, so that was quite disappointing. Then we went to the World Cup in Plant City. In the same year, we made it to the final, and we're leading like after 3 innings against the Bahamas with 10 runs or something. And then the rain came again, so again, not lucky. I think the Bahamas were better in the round robin, so that's why they won the gold and we only won the silver. But then in 2017, we really had all that luck that was missing the last couple of years come together, because I think I have never had a day like that. The final day in Sofia, I think we scored. We played 3 games. We played against I think Ireland first, then Slovenia, and then GB. And in every game, we scored what I felt more runs than the whole week. It was crazy. Like everybody, boys and especially girls, everybody was hitting on that day. It just came together. Like once the train was rolling on that day, nobody could stop us.
Right. So just going from Germany, Mike, I got a question for you. You've been playing, GB has been playing since 1998. There have been 12 championships, if I'm not wrong, and you probably correct me. And GB took 11 gold, except for that one Germany one. So the question, I guess, what a lot of people would say, what's the secret? If you know it, let us all know, because there are a lot of teams out there who would love to take a gold at a championship.
I guess so. Well, it's 11, I think, not the 12. But ironically, Sofia is the only final that I've missed, because I'm normally self-allocated TC to the Slowpitch events. And my son had the bad taste to choose the wrong day for his wedding. So I missed that Sofia final. And of course, only heard the Germany news the next day. I think GB's success is based, first of all, in comparative terms, the numbers that we've already talked about. We've got a big, relatively population of Slowpitch players. Their pattern is typically that they play for their own team, their local team, in a midweek league. So that's Mondays through Thursdays. They're playing competitive, not such a high level perhaps, but a competitive game of softball. But the better players will band together, maybe form an all-star from that league, and then become a touring team. So their target then is weekend play. Or indeed, a team in the league is good enough to go themselves, and they become a touring team at weekend. If you look at the GB softball program, the Slowpitch games, you will find 2 or 3 two-day tournaments most weekends in the summer. You could spend every Saturday and every Sunday playing competitive Slowpitch in categories: recreational, mid-recreational, and competitive. So people are spending a lot of time doing this, and they play against the best they find elsewhere. Those guys are playing each other multiple times during the year. So that actually makes national team selection quite, well, I wouldn't say easy, because you're spoiled for choice, but you do have lots of opportunities to see the best playing against each other on a regular basis. And for the biggest tournaments, we have one called the Diamond Series, which is 3 separate occasions within the summer. And within that, the National Softball League, that's a 12-team arrangement, play a home and away game against each of the others in the league. And that's the best of the best. So I think Wolfgang cheats a little bit when he's talking about what we do in GB, because he's a member of one of those teams. We see him over here way too often. So those weekend tournaments are developing a cadre of players for choice in the national squad, and then add to that the absolutely expert bench management that we have in our national teams manager in Steve Patterson, who puts that team out in formations and options which you can't believe, and and he brings it all together. With that combination, I guess that's a pretty good reason for success.
Mike is absolutely right. That's something that we did as well. I think from 2014 or so, we've been playing in those tournaments that he mentioned in the UK, and right now a lot of our players are playing over there already. So a big part for us as well. So I'm pretty sure that's a big part for the GB guys and girls.
Right. So just so everybody knows right now, again, we're hitting back into these questions. Just so that you know, the Greek president, softball president, Kostas, was online. We have visitors from Australia here. You got from GB, from Germany. You're getting a lot of comments. You can look at them later. I'm asking everybody, send your likes, send your comments to us. It helps us a lot in sort of, sending the word out that we're doing these live interviews. Right now, I think one question, though, and it might be two questions, so listen very carefully, from Colm Lavery, the president of Softball Ireland. He's going to give us a question. Tom, can you put it up for us, the question on that video?
Hello from Dublin, and good evening, Europe. Ordinarily, this evening would have been the Eurovision Song Contest, and you'd be all delighted to know that I won't be singing. But I would like to say this is Dublin calling. Wolfgang, Mike, great to see you online. And though I am pre-recording this message, I am no doubt we are enjoying your discussion on the development growth of Slowpitch softball across Europe. I would like to thank the European Softball Federation, or Softball Europe as we're now called, for this initiative of the webinars which are covering all areas of our sport, including Slowpitch softball. And I'd like to take this opportunity to ask a couple of questions and get the view of both Mike and Wolfgang in the studios, and to get the view of our membership across Europe. My first question comes in two parts, and I apologize, I'm reading from it. What do we think Softball Europe and federations can do to transition players from fast-pitch softball, baseball, to slow pitch, and in turn keep them in the sport longer? Second part of my question is, what further support can Softball Europe give to slow pitch countries and developing slow pitch countries to assist in the growth of the discipline at all levels? I think this is a very important question, as we do see a number of players drop out of the sport as they retire from both baseball and fast pitch, and an opportunity to keep on including these players in the sport. My second question for the evening is, with the amount of development of online training and with the ESCA courses, what slow pitch specific online education we'd like to see Softball Europe develop in the coming months? And from that, what would we like to see in a slow pitch specific education package as part of the ESCA courses? I would again be delighted to hear what your thoughts on the matter, and maybe hear thoughts from those people watching this evening. Thank you again for the opportunity to ask a question. Thank you for these webinars, and best of luck, and everyone please stay healthy, and we'll see you on the dirt soon. Good evening from Ireland. Iroha.
So I'm going to give Mike, give me a little bit on that first question that Colm gave up about to us. What do we think about Softball Europe and Federation to do for transition of players and things?
Well, strangely enough, in GB, the question that question is normally asked of me the other way around. Is that how can we get people moving from slow pitch into fast pitch? Because fast pitch is by far the Cinderella part of the sport with us. But I think across Europe, to go back to getting people into slow pitch, I'd first of all be keen to say that the disciplines are not in conflict with each other. There's a lot of common ground, obviously, between them all. But as I said a little bit earlier, there will be times when people will want to switch to something else. And it's typically moving away from competitive play a little bit later in the career. I think if a federation has got this eye towards continued economic connection with their players to keep them in the sport longer, Slowpitch will do that for them. And to encourage people to do it, I think needs no more than for people to see it happen. It's always been my experience in slow pitch that there is a great feeling of camaraderie and fun in the way it's being played. People enjoy playing it. Wolfgang quite rightly said at the high competitive level, it's serious fun, but fun is almost the first word you would use. I don't think it's too difficult for people who see it being played, particularly by people like themselves who've moved across after a long career in either baseball or fast pitch. It doesn't take a huge leap of the imagination to say, I'd like to have a go at that. So I think federations should be open to that move. They should encourage it. I don't think there's a particular need to go out with advertising campaigns unless they feel they need to build it on that basis. But to me, to a large extent, it's a discipline that sells itself.
Okay, great. Sounds good. And what Wolfgang, that second question. What do you think Softball Europe can do to probably assist the growth of the discipline? Do you think that the Softball Europe, ESF, should do something more? What do you think?
I think Mike just said a couple of very important things about that. I think the first step would be for all those federations that have a strong baseball or fast pitch background, that those people that are in charge have to understand that as well, and have to understand that slow pitch is that big of a chance to keep people involved after they stop playing baseball or fast pitch. Like, if they have a break after that for family or job or whatever, it's very hard to get them back, I think. If they just continue to play, maybe on a lower, like time commitment-wise, on a lower level, because they only have to do it once a week or something, and they stay involved, then that's going to be such a huge thing for all clubs, because they will be coaches later on and everything. From my experience in those baseball and fast pitch clubs I've played in, that was always a big challenge, that people are just lost at some point. So if all the federations and all those in charge really understand that slow pitch is a big chance to actually do that, that would help a lot already. So I think that's something that the WBSC Europe can help with. They can try to get those people to understand, like at the congresses, talk to those people and everything. I think slow pitch for many of those officials is still like, yeah, I know, slow pitch is where the ball is slow, right? But that's about it. And then when you then go down to the federation level, I think one very big thing is you basically need to have a transition period for players where they can do both. Because, as I said, if they stop playing baseball or fast pitch, they will not suddenly pick up slow pitch if they didn't know about it before. So they will just quit, and then they will be gone. So you have to have a time where they still play baseball and fast pitch, but also try out slow pitch and realize, oh, wow, that's really great. And then when they stop playing, they maybe play more slow pitch, or they continue playing slow pitch. And that's something the federation can help a lot with, because of scheduling stuff. Like, if the federation for baseball or fast pitch just doesn't account for those slow pitch opportunities in their schedules and doesn't allow players to really try both, then it's really hard for those players to actually do it.
Right. Okay, that sounds good. I'm going to give a little answer now to Colum's last question, and just so that we can move on, because we have a few more questions, and we've come to the end of our interview soon. He asked about the specific online educations. What I do want to say is that we will be doing things such as slow pitch and fast pitch educational webinars, as we would call them, and panels through Zoom meetings. We'll be doing that hopefully within the next few weeks. We will be doing lectures from people who can, talk about strategies and everything like that. Hopefully we'll be able to get that working. That'll continue even after the Corona issue, because I think we've opened up this whole new this new avenue of doing these things so that people can get our word out even more, because we're still running up with all our followers right now and everything. I do have a question for both of you really quick, and I'd like a short answer on this. Is the Super Cup becoming a tournament that can be open to teams from outside of Europe, as we have in the Men's Fast Pitch Super Cup, and should they be? And the other part of that question would be, are the pickup players that Super Cup only Europeans, or do you have people from America, New Zealand, Canada? So I'll start with Mike on that.
Okay. As far as introducing other teams to the competition, I've seen it happen in the Men's Super Cup, and certainly it's happened in Fast Pitch. Several teams have come in from outside Europe to play in those competitions, and I can think it can only be a good thing. I think it cements Europe's relationship with the rest of the world. It makes us very open to others, and we're nothing if not an international sport. And I think that those sort of cooperative things are very good. It also, of course, greases the wheel for when maybe European teams would like to tour other places. So I don't see anything wrong with that. For this particular competition, I personally would certainly welcome teams from outside Europe coming along for the Super Cup. I think they bring a new sparkle to it. I'd be perfectly happy with that. As to the pickup players, I don't think you get the same impression of the pickup players in the slow pitch environment as perhaps exists in fast pitch. I just looked up the rosters for GB in the last competition that they were part of, and we had, I think, 3 teams in that. On the licenses, no more than 1 or 2 licenses asked for, and when people came along, 1 maybe 2 players. So it not a big factor at all. Looking at those individual players, incidentally, my memory of them is that they were actually playing on a regular basis, the residents in GB playing with their own team within the British Softball Federation League. So they're as much a part of our game as anybody. We didn't have a lot of what I would call any transatlantic fly-ins, let's put it that way. As for other teams,
Right.
I don't know the details elsewhere.
Yeah,
Wolfgang,
so
what do you think about
pickup
that?
player
Opening up to
situation?
other countries, New Zealand, America, Canadians.
Well, let's start with the pickup player first. Pickup player situation is quite different, I feel, in fast pitch and in slow pitch. In fast pitch, it just makes a lot more sense to bring in those really good players, especially pitchers, because they have such a big part of the game and they are such an important part of that, and they can really change the whole team for the better or the worse. In slow pitch, you would have to bring in either a lot more players, or they would not have that big of an influence. I don't think it happened. All those that are counted as pickup players on those rosters, most of them, I'm pretty sure, are just living in Europe and just happen to have another passport, so they count as pickup players. As for other teams taking part from outside Europe, I would be very happy to have that, because I always like to play good softball, and if good teams participate from other countries, I love it. I see a problem with that, though, because we're right now struggling to find organizers to have as many proper fields for the teams we already have. So I'm not sure about that.
Right. So, okay. So, I mean, those are answers that we can use. Really quick about one last little subject here that we had brought up. As you all know, there is a new men's slow pitch championship. Is there a future for that, as it is like in other places of the world, like the United States and Canada? Is it something that you think can work here? And by the way, just as we had that sense, somebody asked, will there be a women's slow pitch thing? What do you guys think about those things? Very short answers for that. Please, go ahead, Wolfgang, start us off.
Well, exactly what you just said would have been the first thought I had. Like, if we talk about men's slow pitch, why are we not talking about women's slow pitch as well? Because for me, that's like, there's no reason why we should only talk about men. At the same time, I love to play co-ed, and a lot more than men's slow pitch. We do play men's slow pitch at the Europeans, mainly because of 2 reasons. One would be we have a lot of guys that can't play on the co-ed team because we can only have so many guys play, and we want to give them a chance to play at the high level as well. So that really is a great chance for us when we're playing slow pitch, men's slow pitch. And also because it's happening and we want to support it. But to be honest, for us, it's not that interesting compared to co-ed. I really love the co-ed and everything about it. Playing together with girls, like it's a big thing, not only in sport, but also in society with gender equality and everything. So I think slow pitch can actually be maybe kind of a role model for society as well. So I love co-ed.
Okay, so there we go. Mike, what do you think about that? Men's, women's? We have the men's. Do women's? What do you think about the men's? Is there a future for the men's slow pitch?
Well, on the basis of what I saw at Ochen for the first one, that's some of the best slow pitch softball I've ever seen played. The hitting was absolutely, the pitching was good, but the hitting was magnificent. The outfielders were working their butts off all the way through those games, but they were making some stupendous plays and returns. As I say, it was tremendous to watch those games. So I would hope very much that that will continue. I see no reason why the female equivalent shouldn't happen as well. But I say that, of course, from a country where we do have an awful lot of players and we have a good choice. So if you have a scenario where some individual who's good is being invited to multiple events every year, traveling, you may find that vacation becomes a constraint and they have to start choosing between one or the other. And that would be particularly apparent in a country where there was a very small population to draw from. So I think as long as they didn't cannibalize the mainstream of the co-ed, which I think is the backbone of this discipline, as long as they could all work, that would be fine. But I would be careful not to prejudice the slow pitch by taking others way back to single sex. The inclusivity of our sport in the centre there is, to me, really one of the standout points.
Right. So those are good opinions. Just so that you both know, and everybody that's listening, we've been getting a lot of comments online about it. So later people can go back and see what they're saying. A little bit of arguments going back and forth there just to see how it's working. Some believe this, some believe that. I will tell you that as a person who at first, when we had the discussion, I sort of, we a few years back brought up an idea from the staff on our executive council. We sort of said, what about playing at the border battle and sending a softball European team there? And of course, that was only for, it wasn't co-ed, it was men's. And we did it for a reason, and I think it was Steve Patterson who took them over there, and we did a little bit of a trial run with them, and we're looking forward, maybe we can do it in the future. The one big reason that was in there was that the marketing possibilities for men's slow pitch in the United States is really, really big. And we thought that maybe we can get that equivalent and bring them over to Europe and try to build up that kind of marketing, and then slowly get in some more sponsors and things like that, so that can help us develop our co-ed, which is also something that happens in the United States too. And that's the way we're trying to effectively try to get something going. So that was just something I wanted to point out. We probably will look into it to the future, hopefully, and we can continue this. And as to women's, again, you have single sex, you have the co-eds. We're going to have to see how that's going to work out. Maybe in the future we'll get more advice on that. I'm going to move on right now to the last subject for today, just reminding everybody about the killer question. Who's the most famous name today in slow pitch worldwide? I'm waiting for all those comments. I haven't seen a name pop up there, so if you're listening, either go on the internet and find it, or if you think of somebody, put that name up there. So, we're moving into the last part of the section here, and that'll be the World Cups and other possibilities of building the future. So I'm going to start with Mike on this one. And also we had a question actually from our president, Gaba, about the inaugural World Cup co-ed slow pitch. What's happening with that? What's happening with World Cups? And is it worthwhile if we should be participating in them?
Okay. Well, let's take a little look perhaps at where we are now as far as international play is concerned. And by international, I mean, in our case, for outside Europe. Slow pitch now, 2018 through 21, has its own rule book. So we're recognized by WBSC as a separate discipline. Within Europe, there's a fair amount of slow pitch activity that tries to bring in others. I mean, we play a lot of games other than with Softball Europe. World Series in GB, Elmira, the windmill tournament there. And there's lots of invitationals that go on. We get invited to other places. You mentioned the border battle, but lots of slow pitch teams in GB that I'm aware of will go over to the States every year, and they may be part of a bigger tournament over there, say the advertising industry tournament and similar. So there's a fair amount of movement around at the moment. But I think when looking at those, we have to also say, well, you know, where is the activity? We've already talked about, you know, GB, up to maybe 15,000 players. New Zealand, want to be part of the World Cup that we're hopefully putting on next year. They have 6 teams, and those 6 teams are going to produce a national team. That's the smallest example I found so far. The next biggest, I guess, in terms of scale for us would be Canada. Canada's got up to about 200,000 players in softball. Of those, maybe 90,000 are designated slow pitch players. And across the whole country, they may have 500,000 players. In the US have got 591,000 slow pitch registered players. So you can add to them all the fast pitch players, and then all of the players in the States who play the game, although not necessarily under the Softball USA banner, and we're talking millions. So that, I think, is going to be a natural draw and a place to go to get this sort of competition. And our hope is that the new World Cup that we're planning for 2021 can happen there. We had one, of course, before the World Cup, hosted by the ISF in Plant City, was called a cup, but of course, in those days, cup meant club competition. And they played back in, I think, 2002, 2005. The series was resurrected in 2014 and played annually through to 2018. In that second series, we had, in the end, 10 countries were in there. USA, of course, and Canada, US Samoa, Pacific. We had Turks and Caicos, Curacao, Bahamas from the Caribbean, and from Europe on a regular basis, GB, Bulgaria, France, Germany. So, you know, it was a nascent opportunity. It was starting there. We were, I think, given effectively a choice by WBSC under the new regime. And they said, well, is this something that you want to have in the future? And I think the answer is definitely yes. But I don't think that it should be in the style of the old one, which is, if you like, at the club level. Maybe they're national teams in some cases, but it's a very open tournament, and that was a good thing. But it was becoming a bit the same. And I think this opportunity to make it a cup in the new description, which is now a world championship under WBSC auspices, on a par, therefore, with all of the other national inter-world competitions that they run, I'm all for it, and I think we should definitely be doing it. The difficulty comes in defining the host requirements, because they are onerous. For a World Cup nowadays, it is a huge challenge financially and in terms of facilities. And if we make it too difficult to put on this new one, which hasn't yet proven itself properly, we have to do it very carefully. So I've been talking to Michael Schmidt on a regular basis about the way that we can craft a process for a slow pitch World Cup that will make it possible for a host to organize and to put on, not impossible for them financially, but will still enable teams to come. Teams may pay their own way to a greater extent than they do in the fast pitch side. We don't yet know exactly how this will work, but the important thing is that it happens. This year, of course, unfortunately, has sabotaged our efforts. We were hoping perhaps for autumn of 20, then maybe the spring of 21. I think nowadays we have to look at that again, and we have to realistically say that we're now looking at the autumn of 21. But if that gives us more chance to organize, more chance to get new people in, I think that's a good idea. We're hoping that it's going to be in Florida, as the previous ones were. That's a good opportunity for Canada, the US, the Caribbean, and indeed South American teams to take part. Not too difficult for Europe. I know there's several European teams that would line up quite happily to go over there. That's not an impossible journey for us. The rest of the world, okay, I think there's more of a challenge. Asia, I don't know enough about what goes on there to estimate that. But hell, Steve, if New Zealand say they want to go, and they're the furthest away, they've already made a commitment. If that competition happens, they will be there. We know the guy who's been put in charge of their squad. he has the onerous task of choosing a team from all of his 6 league teams. So I wish him good luck in that. But if they can make it, I hope lots of others can as well.
Right. Great. So, Wolfgang, we heard about the situations of the World Cups. What do you think? Do you think it's something worthwhile to recommend to other countries to go to? What's your opinion on the World Cups?
Absolutely. The World Cups have always been a blast, but to be honest, from the first World Cup we took part in, not sure whether that was 2014 or 15, I think 15, the goal was always like, I was always asking the same question, okay, when do we have a true world championship? When do we really have national teams here? Like, we've been waiting for it. We were quite disappointed, I think, in, when was that? 2015 or 16, when we came there and all of a sudden, last minute, the US team pulled out, because, like, obviously that's one of the big things you're looking forward to. You want to play the best of the world, right? And yeah, I'm all for it. We've been looking forward to the World Championship for years, and if it's happening, we're there.
If you qualify.
Okay. Yeah, qualify. Yeah, okay. So that's good. Well, actually, to tell you the truth, I've been asked by Bulgaria a couple of times to come and play for them, and it was like, really? You really want me to come? I can't even run to first base anymore. So anyhow, that was the situation me as to playing slow pitch. Great, guys. I'd really like to let you know that we've been having a lot of these questions out here. I will give you 1 or 2 last questions from our guests that have been on. Just simple questions such as, do you think there should be a rule that running around the bases after a home run or just return to the dugout? What do you guys think of that one? That's a question that came to us. What do you think about it, Wolfgang?
I don't know. I'm indifferent about that. Like, I can do both. I'm totally okay with people running around the bases. I can totally understand. Like, I don't see the problem for us in Europe that we have so many home runs that we need to cut down on the base running time, like it maybe happens in the US. But
all right, Mike, what do you think? Mike, what do you think? Should they run about? You're an umpire. Do you like to sit there and wait for the guy or the girl to run around the bases, or you just say, hey, hit the dugout, you hit a home run?
Well, I guess my first response would be a question, say, are baseball considering this? Are FASTPITCH considering this? So, why should we be considering this? But I think the real answer is, if you're talking about a full game, that is not a game where there's a massive time constraint and 30 seconds spent here and there is important within the context of that particular event. I can see if somebody hits a home run, you say, okay, he's done it. Why should he go? Well, the answer is it's the honor lap. It's going around the bases and incidentally making sure you touch them, because if you miss one, you could be in trouble. But you've got to make the circuit, and the home stretch down from third to home is an iconic thing, I think, for any batter. Now, think of it also. Right. What if the bases are loaded? What if the bases were loaded and that was a home run? Are we really asking the other ones just to walk out across the field? I mean, what a lack of drama that would involve. But all 4 of them coming in, and the last person, male or female, who's made that grand slam, I wouldn't like to take that away from anybody. But at a local level,
all right,
if you have a competition where you're trying to squeeze the games in and saving 30 seconds would help, by all means, do it local level. Don't change the rule book. That's my view.
Great. That sounds good. So I'm going to wrap it up here right now just for the both of you. We're going to go to our killer question in a second. I just want to say to everybody that's been listening and watching, I just want you to know that our numbers have stayed at a constant high, more than we've had, I think. And I'll check that later than our other ones. So the slow pitch community has got a big plus on the last two of our interviews. So just so you know that. And hopefully we'll get more coming in the future. Okay, who's the most famous name today in slow pitch worldwide?
Honestly, I think that's a hard question to answer. I thought about that a bit, but like, what is famous? I thinking about players outside from Europe. I don't know if I even know one name. Maybe those names that are printed on the bats, but like, Okay, why are they there? So I thought about that a little bit, and I want to rephrase the question a little bit and answer that question instead. So the question I'm answering is who should be famous from what I see as some reasons. And I define world as Europe because I don't know the rest of the world. We need some World Cups before I know the rest of the world. So what do I think? Who should be the most famous player in Europe? Well, most of the time, fame should come from being good, right? So I'm answering the question, who's been good the last couple of years? And at European tournaments, where we have all the stats to back it up and everything, I think one player really stands out for the last 4 years. And like, I think from 2016 to 2019 in the 5 Slowpitch ESF tournaments that have happened, overall, it was like maybe around 10 players that have made it to hit more than 800 for a whole tournament. Okay, maybe 10 players. 5 or 6 out of them were in Regione, where one of the fields was really short. So that must be taken into consideration. Only one of those players was able to repeat it. All the other players were able to hit once above 800. But the player who repeated it did it every tournament. He hit from 2016 to 2019 every tournament better than 800 in the ESF Slowpitch competitions. And that was Max Zerhusen from Germany. Very good. Yeah, he just awesome player, awesome hitter, and he plays a quite good shortstop as well. He's actually so good that he plays it left-handed. So yeah, tells you something.
Ah, there you go. There you go. All right. So he's the guy in fast pitch that we would walk every time. We won't let him hit the ball at all. He's the guy. Just walk him. Don't even let him hit the ball.
Well, if he wanted to play fast pitch, I'm pretty sure he would be a great fast pitch player. We had him a couple of times on the team, and fun story actually. I think I knew him for probably 5, 6, maybe 7 years at that time already when he joined us for a high-level fast pitch competition in Zeist in the Netherlands, and that was basically when he played the high level of fast pitch for the first time. And he was facing one of the Czech pitchers there. And I was being the third base coach, and well, he just it was bad. He just looked really bad. He missed 3 times, came back to me, and was like, "Oh wow, that was a first." And I was like, "Okay, what do you mean?" Well, that was the first time in 7 years that I struck out. So that was his fast pitch story, basically. But yeah, he would be a good player, I think.
All right, good. Mike, what do you think? What's your name? What's your best player? Famous player.
Well, again, like Wolfgang, I plead ignorance on the world scene. I mean, other than to research the best hitter in the border battle, I guess, but who knows what his name is. So I did exactly what Wolfgang did. I thought, well, no, I know Europe better than I know the world. I don't take the same definition as he does, though. Famous to me means, sort of well-known by everybody in the sport. As far as I'm concerned, the most famous person in Europe is Wolfgang.
Oh, wow.
There you go, Wolfgang. You got your first vote. Actually, you got more votes. I think I saw some people writing out on here in the comments that Wolfgang is the most famous. And to tell you the truth, Wolfgang, the only thing that I ever knew about the Slowpitch at the beginning when I started all this was they said the guy with the beard, his name is Wolfgang. He's the guy to talk to about Slowpitch. So there you go. I guess you are one of the most famous ones. I've seen you with a longer beard, and then it came shorter, and then I don't know. So people have been asking me, how about my beard? And I said, I'm only doing this for the Corona season, and hopefully I'll take this off at one point. So there you go.
Well, that was the big secret.
Right.
I was growing that beard back then for the gold in 2017. That was one of the big secrets for winning that gold.
There we go. There we go.
But I'm pretty sure
just so you know,
I'm just famous now because I have been on that live stream. That's why I'm famous now. So thank you for that.
There you go. So just so you know, some of the names that came out from our people that were on board, they were calling her Christine Dowling, Penny Crine, Brett Helmer, Dan Spinks, Steve Hazard. I guess they said anybody that has their name on a bat is the most famous. So once you get your name on the bat, whoever it is, you'll know that you're a famous person for Slow Pitch. Guys, everybody, I would like to thank Mike Jennings and Wolfgang Walther for being on our interview. We did go a little longer. Sorry for those technical things. I want to say thank you for all the viewers. We're still in the high 60s over here. People are still watching. We got to get this going more. Send it out. I want more people to watch our interviews. I want to thank both of you for taking the time to talk with us. It's been really interesting. Mike, Wolfgang, thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, everybody. So everybody out there
Bye-bye.
today, thank you very much for being Softball Europe and in our live interviews. We're supposed to come back on Monday. We might be taking a break unless you get your information within 2 days because we're still waiting for some answers. If not, then we will be back next with some more interesting interviews. And be ready. We are going to start our ESCA courses, and we will be starting our ESCA panels with the Zoom, and you'll get your invites to come in to watch us and learn a little from all these coaches, players that we can have some better discussions with and discuss more training and everything else that'll be interesting to you. Thank you very much for being with us.